Hello, friends, and welcome to the Particularly Peculiar podcast, episode number 13. In this episode, we will be covering someone who you likely have not heard of before. I know that I hadn't. We are going to be talking about Mrs. Catherine Crowe. I am Taylor.
And I am Christian.
And we are your hosts. We are here to talk about all things strange, unusual, and just plain peculiar. Thank you so much for joining us. To our returning listeners, welcome, peculiar people. And to those listening for the first time, the peculiar people welcome you.
We welcome you with open arms.
That's right.
So we have some wonderful news in the development of our merch. We have gotten a couple designs back from our graphics designer. Shout out to Jack. So we will be getting some shirts printed here very soon. The way that we approached our merch is maybe a little bit unorthodox and slightly different from most creators when they make merch. It is directly related to, their channel or their, say, podcast.
Yeah, it's like mostly branded.
Right. So the approach that we chose to take was creating an entire brand around the podcast, just based on the podcast. The brand itself is going to be called Peculiar Goods and Apparel, and it'll have its own website and all of its own designs in and of itself. We will be releasing designs that are directly related to the podcast, such as the podcast logo and things like that. But we will also be releasing just other designs that we come up with that fit into the same type of things we talk about. Really just the strange, the curious, the oddities, and all of that. So we're really excited to be able to bring this to you guys, and I think it's something that everybody will really be able to get behind. So as soon as we have the merch in our hands and ready to sell, the website is ready to go. It just hasn't gone live yet. I will put it live and let the frenzy begin.
That's right.
We will only be running a limited amount to begin with. So you're going to want to make sure to hop on and order with this first run because it's really going to be the trial run. I know it's going to go well. You guys are great. And I know that. I can feel it. So we'll let you know as soon as that's available. Hopefully here in the next couple episodes.
Yay. That makes us so happy.
Yes.
We can't wait. Because we want to rock our own merch too.
Yeah. We will be the first ones.
Yes, obviously.
And I will be wearing it every day.
Oh. The same one?
The same shirt.
Oh, okay.
Never washed.
Guys, we have some peculiar news. I'm sure a lot of people that listen to this podcast have probably heard of this, but it was pretty exciting. So there was a YouTuber who came on declaring that they have found a large primate-like skull. They claim, obviously, that it was a Bigfoot skull. So it was a large primate skull that was found in British Columbia. Again, it was the YouTuber Coyote Peterson.
Okay.
He shared this on Thursday. So he had initially said that he hid the discovery for several weeks from government officials and any others who might try to kind of get rid of the footage of the excavation of the skull. He went on to say, I'm sure these pictures will be taken down, as will probably the video, by government or state park officials, but the skull is safe. I don't know if it is what you think it all might be, but I cannot explain finding a primate skull in the Pacific Northwest without wondering. What do you believe? Obviously, there are no large primates that currently live in North America other than humans.
Right.
So that's kind of what he's alluding to there. So as I said, he is a YouTuber, but this guy, Coyote Peterson, is also on Animal Planet. He has a show called Brave the Wild, I believe. The issue here is that it's obviously being deemed as fake.
Right.
So that's obviously a big problem because this guy somehow obtained a large primate skull and got it to the United States.
Interesting.
So I'm pretty sure anything like that is illegal, like smuggling parts or whatever.
Interesting.
Like smuggling specimens, essentially, over into the United States. Also, who knows how he even got it?
Right.
So that's another
just order
issue.
that online.
Well, right. So it's like, is that somebody who's out there poaching and that's how you obtained this? So a paleontologist over in the UK actually told Live Science, which is where I'm getting this information from, that it is undoubtedly a gorilla skull. It is obvious from numerous anatomical details and has been verified by a list of experts. So,
interesting.
Yeah. Of course, they were trying to say, oh, it's from an unknown species, all that, but they are deeming that as incorrect.
A hoax.
Yes, a hoax. Which, when I first read that this was happening, I got really excited, unfortunately.
Yeah, when you had pulled this article up, I didn't know what it was, but I saw that picture, and to me, that picture just looks like a gorilla.
Yeah, I don't know what a gorilla skeleton looks like.
I see them every day.
Oh. Just these random gorilla skulls?
I see gorilla skulls daily.
That's weird. But, yeah, of course, because it's a primate.
Right.
So, I imagine that if Bigfoot is real, his skeleton would probably look like that.
Now, what would it take for people to actually believe that Bigfoot was... Like, what piece of evidence would it take to convince the non-believers that Bigfoot is real? Like, one that's alive, captured, or...
I think even if they found any sort of like remains of a Bigfoot, because that's the thing I think with a lot of skeptics is like, where are the bodies? They have to die at some point.
Right. Well, and if they were, if they are as elusive and secretive and intelligent as we deem them to be, they would make sure to dispose of their own bodies, the right way. Like if they were
possibly, but even so, it's like, what if one got injured or one got sick or, there's all sorts of reasons why one would just die in the wilderness and someone would come across it, because obviously when people are out hunting Bigfoot, the reason why they don't find it is because a Bigfoot is going to be eluding them the whole time.
Right.
But they can't do that when they're not alive. So I think that's a big thing that people say, is that the reason why they don't really necessarily believe is because there hasn't been even anything like that.
Right.
Like they haven't found bones or, the footprints and things like that can be faked. I know that they said that the feet prints that they found, I don't remember where exactly, but they actually had like the, toe prints, like we have fingerprints. We also have those on our feet.
Uh-huh.
And they said that the impressions that they took, you could actually see those prints in them. But I don't know how real that is. So.
Right.
I have another one too, and I just saw it on my phone, so I might not have this down like very well, but an Iowa man, and we live in Iowa, was hospitalized fighting a brain-eating amoeba after swimming in a lake.
A brain-eating amoeba.
Yes, and it's crazy because I feel like that was the thing that we always heard growing up, but it's like, that's probably fake, right?
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't fake as I got older and learned about things like that. But I think we forget that even in, middle of the United States, small town Iowa, we can still get things like brain-eating amoebas.
Yeah. And if you don't know, the lakes in Iowa are disgusting.
Yeah, they're pretty gross.
People swim in them all the time.
Yes.
They boat on them and they play in them.
I used to swim in the lakes here all the time.
I did as well a long time ago, but now I think about it and I'm like, they are not okay.
Well, I feel like they were not as bad back then, which actually could be true due to,
The blue-green algae
Yeah.
has gotten really bad around here.
right. And I don't know how this amoeba got into the waterway. I don't know if it was, it could have come over from somewhere else.
Well,
Look-
that is interesting to think about. Where did it come from? And
I don't
how
know.
did it get into that lake? I wonder what lake it was.
It was like the Lake of Three Fires State Park in Taylor County. I'm reading this from the Des Moines Register. It says that the closure is in response to the confirmed infection of the microscopic single-celled free-living amoeba in a Missouri resident with a potential exposure. The Missouri resident is undergoing treatment in an ICU unit in the ICU for the infection. The swimmer was likely exposed to the Iowa lake water over the last 2 weeks of June, though officials didn't have specific dates.
How scary.
It says the lake is a likely source, but they are not limiting the investigation to that source, and it's not confirmed.
Yeah, it's just a precaution.
So, yeah, they're also testing other water sources in Missouri as well. The reason why they think it probably came from a lake, I assume, is because, it says this Naegleria or Naegleria fowleri, I believe, or fowleri, is typically found in warm fresh waters such as lakes, rivers, and ponds. It can cause rare life-threatening infection of the brain called primary amoebic meningoencephalitis.
Whoa.
The reason why I think they assume it was from swimming in the lake is because it's a brain-eating amoeba, and usually when you swim in lakes, you usually get water up your nose.
Right.
I'm not sure where this other one is saying from, but it says infections are very rare, with a 33 reported in the United States from 2011 to 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, so not very many at all. And it says of those cases, 29 people were infected by recreational water, while 3 people were infected after performing nasal irrigation.
Oh, man.
And one person...
The neti pot?
Yeah.
Using the neti pot and got an amoeba.
Well, that's why you just don't use fucking neti pots. They're so gross.
They work, though.
Oh, and it says one person was infected by contaminated tap water while using a backyard slip and slide.
Oh, no.
Not even slip and slides are safe.
They slip and slid right into that amoeba.
Oh, that amoeba slip and slid right up that nose.
Zoop.
Gross.
So that was some good peculiar news.
Yeah, I thought those were pretty interesting ones. And I just saw that one about the amoeba like right before we started recording. So I was like, I definitely got to add that in.
Throw it in.
When we look back on the history of the paranormal, many of us have probably heard about people such as Harry Price or Helen Duncan, people who either searched endlessly for answers, and if they could not find them, some would still pretend that they had. To be someone who truly enjoys all of the paranormal, everything from learning about it, watching it, reading it, chasing after it, I was surprised to find that I had never heard of Catherine Crowe. When I first heard of Catherine Crowe, I saw a headline that just said, the first ghost hunter was a woman. Why is that so surprising?
I don't know. I mean, it's 2022.
Well, it wasn't when she was a ghost hunter.
But when the article was made,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, hey, guys, guess what? Women do stuff.
Oh, wow. Anyway, aside from being one badass woman from the jump, who really was Catherine Crowe? Catherine was born Catherine Ann Stevens in Borough Green, Kent, England. Catherine was schooled at home, and so she spent the majority of her childhood never leaving Kent. She did go on to marry John Crowe and had a son with him as well in 1823. But by 1838, Catherine and John were separated. Catherine and her son lived in Edinburgh, and Catherine's writing career really began to take off. She wrote plays, books, and children's stories. A couple of books she wrote that revolved around the spirit world were The Night Side of Nature and Ghosts and Family Legends, which was published in 1859. And this is where Catherine would recount her own experience in a haunted house. For the novel, Catherine interviewed many people, and essentially she collected ghost stories. But on the 8th evening, around the fire, the others urged her to share her real-life encounters. At first, Catherine dismissed the request, explaining that she had already told all of her best stories in her previous paranormal novel. Eventually, she succumbed. She had decided she would tell of her night in a haunted house, although she told them not a lot really happened. Catherine recounts her tale. She received a letter from a man known only as McN.
Mick N?
McN.
Okay.
So she received this in the mail as a sort of fan mail after the publication of The Night Side of Nature. And in McN's letter, he told Catherine of a time when he was on a trip. He lay in his bed and around 5 a.m., the room door swung open. In walked his father, who simply walked to the bedside, looked down at his son, and then promptly walked right back out. Of course, Mr. McN jumped out of bed and chased his father down, but he was nowhere to be found. When McN returned home, he was informed that his father had passed away. Coincidentally, his death occurred around 5 a.m.
Oh.
After telling Catherine his own ghost story, he then let her know that there was a house he actually rented out in his town, but he could not get any tenants to occupy it due to the happenings. Over the years, Catherine would reach out to McN and check in on the status, but the house continued to sit empty. Eventually, Catherine decided, why not just go check it out? She spoke with a few friends of hers, and they created somewhat of an investigation team. And Mr. McN gladly accompanied them as well. They actually set out for the house around 11 p.m. or around midnight that night. Catherine had also recruited a clairvoyant to come along with them. She was not told of the house or really the purpose of their trip. It was a cold and dark wintry night. The house was only lit by candles. The home was tall and narrow, jammed in between all the other eerily similar houses. But of course, this one was unique. The back parlor was said to have held the most activity, so they made their way there first. The medium worked by way of mesmerization, which was basically hypnosis.
Okay.
So first she was put into her trance and she was just asked questions about how she felt about the house. She let them know that there were actually 2 murders that had occurred there. Not exactly in this house, but on the same property. The medium described the scene for Catherine later on after their visit. She said long ago, a man was walking home alone when a young woman, a stranger to him, asked him to walk her home to ensure that she made it safely. He, of course, obliged, being a true gentleman.
Of course.
And they walked along to an old farmhouse. She then invited the man inside and led him to a sitting room. She left the room, and while the man was waiting for her to return, he began to look around. Little nosy Nelly.
Okay.
You know, this is why you should mind your own business.
Yes.
Eventually, he noticed there was a cloth under the table covering something. And he's like, what's under here? When he lifted the cloth, he was face to face with a dead body.
Oh.
Like, what?
And then you're like, oh.
Excuse me? Why did you bring me here? Why is there just a dead person under this random table?
I would immediately think, oh, this is what's happening to me.
Oh my God. So the man ran to the door, but it was locked. He noticed the window was not very high, so he leapt from the window. Not only did the man leave the city, but he completely left the country with the worry that he was led there so that they could pin the crime on him.
Oh, right.
Which I did not even think about until I read that. But, you know, they figured plant him at the house and then be like, oh, look, he's there.
This strange guy.
This guy just walking around, looking under tables. I don't know. Obviously, we are unsure of really any detail in this story. There's no way to verify this murder.
Right.
But apparently, this was one of the murders that had occurred in the old farmhouse. But back to the investigation. As they sat in silence waiting for any activity, they did hear a metallic clank from the door of the parlor. They described it as a striking of 2 pieces of iron.
Mm-hmm.
And then the medium began shouting, look, there, but no one could see anything. She claimed to be able to see lights, and she asked to hold Catherine's hand to see if she could experience this with her, which I don't know if this was like, as a medium, if she was able to like
transfer her powers.
right, or
her vision.
Right. But it worked. Catherine explains, at intervals of a few seconds, I saw thrown up, apparently from the floor, waves of white light, faint but perfectly distinct and visible. Catherine asked that the medium squeeze her hand whenever she saw the light begin to emanate from the floor. And to Catherine's surprise, she would clasp her hand at the exact time that Catherine saw the light. None of the others in the group saw these lights, and they did not think to hold anyone else's hand to see if it would affect them as well. So it's basically just Catherine's word.
Right.
Which is kind of frustrating because it's like she is a writer.
True.
You know, so it's like she would be good at making stories.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I don't see why lie about something like that. Like if you are going to make it a haunting, a big thing, like make it a big thing, not just lights
Right.
shining from the ground.
Well, but if you make it too big, it's not believable.
Yeah, but then that's where the good stuff is. And if she is trying to sell books or sell a story. Catherine then goes on to explain that in this same room, shortly after the incident with the waves of light, a bright and brilliant white diamond of light appeared in the middle of the room. It did not shine like rays of light. It was more like a white flash or a spark. At that time, nobody else mentioned the diamond of light, and Catherine decided to keep it to herself to see if anyone else would share this experience later. After seeing the strange light, Catherine and a man from the group looked around to see if anything could explain what she saw, but there was nothing but dust and desolation, as she described it. And actually, that concluded their investigation.
Nice.
So there's obviously not much to the story, and it's not terribly scary. But Mr. McN did confirm after they left the space that he too had seen that spark of light, and he described it as an oxyhydrogen light. So some may claim that Catherine was just excited or nervous, which may have caused her imagination to run wild. But she felt like she was perfectly calm at the location. She also went on to state that she did not go into that situation actually expecting to see or find anything. So it's not likely that her mind was playing tricks on her.
Right.
Which that is a big thing I hear is like if you're going on a ghost hunt, quote unquote, you're going to probably see things or hear things that you're going to assume is a ghost because you already are putting that idea into your head.
Right.
So all in all, it was said that a murder occurred on the property. Tenants complained of a haunting. No one would stay. Unfortunately, all they found during the investigation was some strange light phenomena. I'm like, really? That's all that's happening and you just can't keep anyone renting that house? Like, are you sure? Are you the problem, Mr. McN?
That is very true.
Are you a bad landlord?
Yes.
Anyway. In summation of the chapter in this book, Catherine states, quote, our philosophy does not comprehend all wisdom and all truth. Philosophy is a good guide when she opens her eyes, but where she obstinately shuts them to one class of facts because she has previously made up her mind they cannot be genuine, she is a bad one. Unquote. As a woman novelist in the 1800s and someone who believed in the paranormal, it is not hard to imagine that there were some who had it out for Catherine. This brings about the scandal. Dun, dun, dun.
The scandal.
In March of 1854, rumors went around the town that Mrs. Crowe was found wandering the streets of Edinburgh completely naked and apparently acting completely out of her mind. Of course, the people of Edinburgh attributed her actions to being possessed, and it was said she was promptly swept away to spend the rest of her days in an asylum.
Oh.
Well, the truth is actually less exciting.
Oh.
Catherine, who is 64 at this time, was suffering from delirium caused by fever, which they believe was caused by some sort of gastrointestinal illness, and she just ended up going to the doctor.
Oh.
It is not verified anywhere whether or not she was actually naked when whomever found her and got her help. The weird thing is that the person to start spreading these rumors in the first place was none other than Charles Dickens.
What in the world?
Yeah.
I didn't think he was going to be tied into this.
I know, you'd never think Mr. Dickens would be involved in something like that.
What the Dickens?
What the Dickens? Unfortunately, even though Crowe was back to good health after only a couple of days, and she went on to live 18 more years and continued to write, her reputation was forever tarnished by the slander.
Right.
And she never recovered. Catherine Crowe wrote a few novels. She wrote many, many short fiction stories. And again, as we stated earlier, even children's stories. She wrote essays and articles. She investigated the paranormal. And she obviously intimidated the men around her.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I'm surprised she wasn't considered a witch.
Yeah, I'm very, very surprised.
Just for knowing how to write and read
Or talk.
and talk and walk.
Women can do that.
She's a witch.
So
Burn her.
it is really like too bad that, we never really hear about her,
Right.
Like you would think someone who, and even though Charles Dickens had started the rumors, like they were obviously in circles together before that because they were writers. They lived in the same area.
Right.
So it's like she was well known.
Mm-hmm. At the time.
Yeah. And it's just crazy. Like, I mean, I think we've all heard of Charles Dickens, at least to some extent. Not like we've all read his novels or anything, but we've all heard the name.
Right. I have no idea what he's written. I'm sure there's, the large titles that if you said them, I'd be like, oh, yeah, okay. But, I mean, I've never read any Charles Dickens.
I honestly, did he write like 1,000 Leagues Under the Sea or 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea or whatever? I don't even know. Now we got to look it up. Great Expectations. That's the one I was trying to think of. Great Expectations. Classic.
A classic. Yeah, and also like you said, the investigation itself isn't that wild, and
right,
isn't...
and it wasn't even like when we think of a paranormal investigation, of course we think of, meters and imagers and EVPs and
they took what they had at the time, which was a clairvoyant and a medium.
Right.
Or is...
No, just one person. But just saying, like, it's not like they were using, any crazy technology or any wild, I don't know, like, I mean, I guess using a clairvoyant is pretty wild. But
yeah, that's some pretty intense.
You know what
technology.
I mean? Like, it's not what we think of today, and it didn't produce many results because obviously there wasn't that much going on.
Yeah. This was written in one of her books.
Well, yes. So it was Ghosts and Family Legends, published in 1859. It was written in that book. So what she did for that book, again, she interviewed people to get their paranormal experiences. And when they had asked her to share hers, that was one that she hadn't shared with them yet.
Okay.
And that was the first documented paranormal investigation.
That we're aware of.
To
this date.
Right.
Pretty cool, though. I mean...
It is cool. It's a cool piece of history, I think, for people that are interested in that stuff.
Right.
Like we are.
Who would have known that Sheryl Crow was around then?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, she's a vampire. She's been alive since the 1700s. Okay, well, that is all that we have for you today, guys. Remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, comment, whatever you do, go do it. Of course, check out our website at www.particularlypeculiar.com. Please use the contact form to submit any stories you may have. Or any recommendations for future episodes. We would love to start getting those submissions in, guys. Even if you just want to send us an email and say, hey, we'd like that too.
Yep. DM us on Instagram.
That's right. Slide in those DMs. Also, if you would like to help out the show, please feel free to utilize our donate tab on our website as well. I think Do we have multiple donation tiers?
Yep. So it all starts at $1.
Cool.
Yep.
So I know I have said it like 2 or 3 times. Actually, I don't need to say this, but like we said before at the beginning of the show, merch is coming very, very soon. It's literally getting closer and closer every day. It'll be even closer by the time this episode comes out. But anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in today, and we will see you again soon. Until next time, our peculiar people.